Welcome to Module 4, Healthcare IT System Selection and Strategic Planning. The selection of an electronic medical record is very similar to the selection of any healthcare IT system or any IT system. That would include the ancillaries like pharmacy or lab or any other products or services that you would then purchase. Of course, this would be the same if you were in any industry, including banking or insurance. You're going to be looking at the people that are actually going to be using the system. We're also looking at the type of data that we're putting into the system, as well as the kind of data that we're looking to get out of the system. Of course, in healthcare, we have to be cognizant and understand the potential for breach with protected health information. And of course, we're also looking at making sure that it does meet the minimum certification requirements that the ONC has put out for a certified electronic medical record. In addition, the people that are putting the system in must actually use the system, because there are metrics that are going to be required to get out of the system, the data that's put in and the data that's pulled out, to ensure and to show that the system is being used in a meaningful way or meeting the meaningful use criteria. There are really two types of systems that are available. One is a MOTS system, which is modifiable, and the other one is called a COTS system, which is not. Think of Microsoft Office. Typically, you're going to open up Microsoft Office and utilize it the way Microsoft has intended. Now, there may be some ways where you can do some basic VB coding within maybe the database or Excel or even Microsoft Word to get it to act or behave in a certain way. But typically, 99.9% of the time, you're using the system as it was intended to be used. With a MOTS system, it's much more modifiable. And typically, these types of systems have a backend. With Cerner, their backend was something called Bedrock. And Bedrock basically was the basis of the system. And it allowed the IT department to customize some of the data that was being put in, as well as some of the visuals that were being presented to the end user. They could also customize reports, for example. So being able to go in there and make those changes in Bedrock allowed the end user hospital specifically, to modify the workflow. Now, some healthcare facilities did create their own versions of electronic medical records back in the day. But one of the advantages of not doing that is the time, labor, and expense to create your own system. Also, if it's off the shelf, it typically requires less of an implementation effort. And look at implementation effort as number of people to implement, as well as financially the amount of money it would spend to implement. It also would decrease the time to implementation. So getting something off the shelf may be a little bit more feasible, especially for smaller hospitals and smaller healthcare organizations that lack some of the resources that some of the larger organizations have. And of course, getting something that is from a vendor that is off the shelf also guarantees, as long as you're making sure that they have received their certification as an EMR, it makes sure that you meet the ONC requirement for being compatible and being certified. Meaningful use has been around since 2012. So one of the things that we're looking at is that the system selection around that is going to include much more than just the original 2012 meaningful use. We're also looking at several other factors, including physician burnout, data obfuscation, meaning the data not coming out the way it should or doesn't look the way it should, as well as multiple vendors. And we're talking about the interoperability standards and vendors' desire to keep and maintain their own products. As implementation does reach a saturation point, with more and more hospitals coming online and being and having an electronic medical record, one of the concerns is, of course, the innovation potentially could suffer, as these vendors are looking to make sure that they maintain a profitability. And there's also a need to adhere to standards that have been released by the ONC and the federal government. Initiatives such as SMART, which is the Substitutable Medical Applications and Reusable Technologies, and FHIR, the Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, are all things that vendors take a look at, but are helpful for us as they try to ensure interoperability between systems. However, it does loosen that grip that vendors have on their own products and also allows more choice to the healthcare organizations that are choosing these systems.